Look, I need to tell you something that's going to sound harsh at first, but stay with me because what comes after this changes everything. There are two people, both exactly 43 years old. Both opened the same retirement calculator last week. Both typed in their current savings. Both saw the same terrifying red number flashing back at them, telling them they're never going to make it, never going to retire comfortably, never going to catch up. 5 years later, one of them has completely transformed their financial situation. The other one, still stuck in the exact same place, still behind, still panicking every time they think about retirement. Now, here's the thing that's going to shock you. The difference between these two people wasn't their income. It wasn't some inheritance. It wasn't crypto or stock picks or some get-rich-quick scheme. The difference was something far more disturbing. And most people over 40 will never figure this out. Here's what most people don't realize. When you're behind on retirement at 40, the entire financial system is designed to make you feel like a failure. Every article, every calculator, every financial advisor starts with the same assumption. You messed up. You didn't save enough in your 20s. You didn't start early enough. And now? Now the math just doesn't work anymore. Compound interest has left you behind. Time is your enemy now. That's the narrative. That's what they want you to believe. But this is where it gets really interesting because that narrative is hiding something massive. Let me show you the math they don't want you to see. The average 3-year-old in America has roughly $63,000 saved for retirement. Now, traditional advice says you need at least $1 million to retire comfortably. Plug those numbers into any calculator and it tells you the same thing. You need to save around $1,800 per month for the next 22 years to hit that target. For most people making $50,000 to $70,000 a year, that's completely impossible. That number alone makes people give up before they even start. But here's the strange part. That calculation is based on a 7% average return, a retirement age of 65, and absolutely zero changes to your financial life except adding money to an account. It assumes you'll keep making the same income, spending the same way, living in the same financial reality for 2 decades. And that assumption is where the whole thing falls apart. Because what happens next changes everything. Let me tell you about Biggie. Biggie was 44 when he finally looked at his retirement account and felt that pit in his stomach. 12 years in the same job, decent salary, but only $41,000 saved. He did what everyone does. Opened the calculator, saw the number, felt the panic. But instead of giving up or throwing money desperately at index funds, Biggie did something most people never do. He stopped focusing on the savings rate and started focusing on the systems creating his financial reality. Here's what I mean. Biggie was spending $2,300 a month on rent for a 2-bedroom apartment he barely used because he worked 60 hours a week. He had a car payment of $485 for a vehicle that sat in a parking garage most days. He was paying $140 a month for a gym membership he visited twice. None of these things felt like financial emergencies. They just felt like life. But when Biggie added them up, he was bleeding almost $3,000 monthly on things that added zero value to his actual daily existence. Now you might be thinking, okay, so he should just cut expenses and throw that money into retirement accounts, right? That's what every finance guru would tell you. But this is where it gets disturbing. Because cutting expenses without changing your financial psychology does absolutely nothing long term. Let me explain why. There's a concept in behavioral economics called lifestyle creep. And it's one of the most destructive forces in wealth building, especially after 40. Here's how it works. You cut your expenses. You feel proud. You free up some money. Then 6 months later, you're somehow spending the same amount again, just on different things. The gym membership becomes meal kit deliveries. The car payment becomes travel expenses. Your brain finds a way to fill the gap because your internal money script, your subconscious belief about what you deserve to spend, hasn't actually changed. This is the part nobody talks about. You can't budget your way out of a psychology problem. So here's what Biggie did differently, and this is critical. He didn't just cut expenses, he rebuilt his entire financial identity. He moved to a smaller place, yes, but not to punish himself. He moved because he realized he was paying for space he didn't value. He sold the car and started using public transit and ride shares, saving $400 a month, but more importantly, removing the psychological anchor of a monthly payment. And here's the thing that most people miss. Every single one of those changes wasn't about deprivation, it was about clarity. Biggie stopped spending money on the life he thought he was supposed to have and started designing the life he actually wanted. And that psychological shift unlocked something most people never access: the ability to increase savings without feeling like you're sacrificing. Within 8 months, Biggie went from saving $300 a month to saving $1,900 a month. Same income, completely different financial reality. But the real reason this matters is much darker than just one person's success story. Because while Biggie was making these changes, there was someone else. Same age, same income, same starting point. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus saw the same retirement calculator, felt the same panic. But Marcus made a different choice. He thought the answer was earning more, so he started a side hustle. Drove for a rideshare app on weekends, picked up freelance projects. In over 2 years, Marcus added an extra $14,000 to his annual income. Sounds like a win, right? But here's the strange part. 5 years later, Marcus had less saved than when he started. Here's what happened. Marcus increased his income, but he never changed his money script. The extra money didn't go into investments. It went into nicer dinners because he felt like he earned it. A better apartment because he could finally afford it. A vacation he'd been putting off. His lifestyle inflated at the exact rate his income grew. And because he was exhausted from working 7 days a week, he stopped paying attention to where the money actually went. The side hustle that was supposed to save him became the thing that burned him out and kept him stuck. This is the trap that destroys people over 40. The belief that the problem is income when the real problem is financial architecture. Now, at first, this sounds impossible. How can someone earning less end up wealthier than someone earning more? But the math is brutally simple. Biggie saved $1,900 a month on $68,000 a year. That's $22,800 annually. Marcus saved about $400 a month on $82,000 a year. That's $4,800 annually. Over 5 years, Biggie accumulated over $114,000 in retirement savings. Marcus? About $24,000. The gap isn't just large, it's catastrophic. And the psychological damage Marcus experienced, the burnout, the resentment, the feeling that no matter how hard he worked, it was never enough, that became its own trap. Here's what most people don't realize. After 40, time is still your most valuable asset, but not in the way you think. It's not about how many years you have left to save. It's about how much energy you have to completely redesign your financial life before your patterns become permanent. Because here's the disturbing truth. Every year you spend in the wrong financial system, your brain becomes more convinced that system is inevitable. You start to believe that's just how much life costs. That's just what people like you spend. That's just your reality. And once that belief hardens, no amount of income increase will ever be enough. Let me give you a concrete example with real numbers. The average American over 40 spends about 42% of their income on housing and transportation. That's rent or mortgage, plus car payments, insurance, gas, maintenance. For someone making $70,000 a year after taxes, that's about $29,000 annually. Now imagine cutting that to 30%, just 12 percentage points. That frees up over $7,000 a year. Invested at 7% for 20 years, that single shift creates over $306,000, not from earning more, from spending intentionally. But most people never make that shift because they've been told the answer is always more income, not better architecture. Now you might be thinking, sure, but not everyone can just move or sell their car or change their whole life. And you're right. But this is where it gets really interesting. Because the people who successfully build wealth after 40 aren't the ones who make the most dramatic changes the fastest. They're the ones who make one intentional shift and let it cascade. Here's what I mean. Biggie didn't overhaul everything overnight. He started with one question. What am I paying for that I don't actually value? For him, it was the apartment. Once he moved, the savings from rent allowed him to pay off the car faster. Once the car was gone, the mental space that freed up allowed him to negotiate a raise at work because he wasn't desperately dependent on that specific job anymore. Each shift created leverage for the next one. That's the cascade effect. And it only works if the first shift is based on genuine values, not just cutting for the sake of cutting. Because what happens next changes everything. Once Biggie had been saving aggressively for 2 years, something unexpected happened. He didn't feel deprived. He felt powerful. His net worth became a source of pride instead of shame. He started seeing financial decisions differently. A $100 dinner wasn't a treat anymore. It was a decision to trade future security for temporary pleasure. And sometimes he made that trade consciously and enjoyed it. But most of the time, he didn't, because his identity had shifted. He was no longer someone trying to catch up. He was someone building wealth. That identity shift is worth more than any budget. Now, let me show you the 3 types of people over 40 when it comes to building wealth, because this is critical. First, there's the denier. This person refuses to look at the numbers. They know they're behind, but looking at it feels too painful, so they just keep going, hoping it works out somehow. They're not dumb. They're psychologically protecting themselves from overwhelm, but that protection becomes a prison. Second, there's the hustler. This is Marcus. They see the problem and they try to outwork it. More hours, more side gigs, more income, but because they never fix the underlying system, the extra effort just gets absorbed into lifestyle inflation. They burn out without building wealth. Third, there's the architect. This is Biggie. They see the problem, but instead of panicking or grinding, they step back and redesign the system. They ask better questions. They eliminate financial friction. They automate savings. They align spending with values, and they build wealth almost as a byproduct of living intentionally. Here's the thing that's going to shock you. The architect doesn't need to be smarter or more disciplined than the others. They just need to understand one disturbing truth. Your financial outcome at 65 is determined by the systems you build at 45, not the effort you apply at 55. Most people get this backwards. They coast through their 40s thinking they'll figure it out later, and then they panic in their 50s and try to save their way out. But by that point, the math is nearly impossible. The window for systemic change closes faster than people realize. Let me give you the most important number in this entire script. If you're 43 with 60,000 saved and you want $1 million by 65, you don't need to save $1,800 a month. You need to save about $1,600 a month and increase your contributions by just 3% per year as your income grows. That small adjustment, that assumption that you'll get modest raises or promotions or side income over 2 decades, changes the entire equation. But here's the catch. It only works if you lock in the system now, if you automate the increases, if you remove the decision fatigue, because the moment it becomes optional, it stops happening. Now, at first, this sounds impossible. 3% annual increases sound small, but over 20 years, they compound into massive behavioral change. And most people can't sustain it because they never built the psychological foundation. They never answered the question, why am I doing this? And without that answer, every sacrifice feels like punishment. Every dollar saved feels like a dollar stolen from your present life. But when you know why, when you've connected your future self to your present decisions, everything changes. Saving doesn't feel like loss anymore. It feels like self-respect. Here's what you need to do right now. Not tomorrow, not after you finish this video, right now. Open your bank statements from the last 3 months. Add up every recurring subscription, every monthly payment, every automatic charge. Don't judge it, just see it. Most people are spending between $400 and $900 a month on things they signed up for years ago and forgot about. Streaming services they don't watch, app subscriptions they don't use, insurance policies that are outdated. That's your first $5,000 a year right there. Then ask yourself the biggie question. What am I paying for that I don't actually value? Not what should I cut? What do I genuinely not care about? Cut those things first. Redirect that money immediately into a retirement account. Automate it so it's not a monthly decision. That's step 1. Step 2, calculate your actual retirement target, not the scary number the calculator gives you, your number, based on the life you actually want, not the life financial advisors assume you need. If you want to live modestly, travel occasionally, and spend time with family, you might need $700,000, not $1 million. If you want to live in a low-cost area and prioritize experiences over things, maybe it's $500,000. The point is, your target should inspire you, not paralyze you. And once you have that number, reverse engineer it. What monthly savings rate gets you there? What percentage of income is that? Can you hit it by cutting expenses, or do you need to increase income? Be honest. but don't let the honesty become an excuse. Step 3, and this is the one nobody does, build your financial identity. Write down, physically write down, who you are financially. Not who you want to be, who you are right now. Are you someone who saves first or spends first? Are you someone who values security or experiences? Are you someone who feels guilty spending money or guilty saving it? Most people have never articulated this. And because they haven't, they're constantly fighting their own subconscious. Once you know your identity, you can start shifting it intentionally. You can start becoming the architect instead of the denier or the hustler. Because here's the disturbing truth they don't want you to know. The financial industry makes billions convincing people over 40 that they're too late, that they missed the boat. That compound interest only works if you started at 22. And yes, starting early is powerful. But starting at 43 with clarity, intention, and a redesigned system is far more powerful than starting at 22 with confusion and lifestyle inflation. The math is different, but the outcome can be the same. The people who win after 40 aren't the ones who save the most. They're the ones who waste the least. They're the ones who stop funding the life they don't even want and start building a life they actually value. So here's my challenge to you. Right now, pause this video. Look at your bank account. Find one thing, just one thing, you're spending money on that you don't genuinely value. Cancel it. Redirect that money. Automate it. Then come back and tell me what it was. Because the difference between the person who builds wealth after 40 and the person who stays stuck isn't knowledge. It's action. It's the willingness to look at the uncomfortable truth and do something about it today, not someday. You're not too late, but the window is closing, and every month you wait is a month the math gets harder.